You got the touch.
This is Stan Bush, and this epic video from Baltmatrix truly has the touch.
Hey folks, today we are taking a look at Transformers Generations Blitzwing. This triple changer was announced at the 2013 Toy Fair at Hasbro's booth, and the fandom has been looking forward to this figure for a while now. Now I'm just going to give you guys a quick 360 look at the figure just to whet your appetite before we get into the full review. I do have a caveat though. This figure looks great in robot mode. Until you start to fiddle with it, then he starts to fall apart, and I'll talk to you about what falling apart really means. But first, just take a look at the figure. The figure itself looks very good. Its G1 color scheme is spot on. Everything about this robot mode is beautiful. I want to state that right off the bat. As you can see, he does have his cannon on the back, and it does stick right up above his head quite nicely, just like the G1 figure did. In the packaging, he is slightly mistransformed, and I'm not sure how to say it, but you really have to start fiddling with it in order to get things loose enough and in proper position. That is one of the issues I have with this figure, is right out of the box, certain parts are so incredibly tight that you feel like you're going to break it while moving it around. So let's go ahead and take a look at the figure up close and personal. First, I want to talk about the accessories that the figure comes with. The first accessory is this gun. It is just a normal, everyday Transformers-esque gun. There is the standard tab on the bottom, or the standard handle on the bottom for him to hold. However, there is a slight issue. The handle is just long enough to barely get it into his hands. So there's not a whole lot of clearance. In fact, if you see that little notch that goes around, that's where it pegs into the hand. Now, in vehicle modes, you can peg it in on the side using the normal peg or either of these side pegs. I do find it interesting that the gun is vaguely similar to Prime's gun, just a little bit. The other weapon is this really kickin' sword. I love this sword. The dual lavender and purple coloring really works well, and yes, you can just peg it in one of the vehicle modes like this, or you can have it peg off to the side, and you can also peg the gun into it as well. So in, say, tank mode or jet mode, you can have it just sitting on the top or the side of the figure. So very nice. In fact, I would have just been happy if it just came with the sword, because this sword is pretty awesome. The one thing that everybody has been wondering is, does this guy have swappable faces? Yes, he does. And just to let you know, the screws here on the side of the head, for me, were a dead giveaway. Especially where you've got one screw over here, and then what looks to be a piece for something that turns. So the way you do it is, here's the face, you just kind of run your finger up the face, and it'll flip up into the helmet. So there's his crazy face. And I like the crazy face. Black, red, works really well. And then one more for his science-y face. And the purple, red, and black work really well there as well. Very, very cool. Though you have to be very careful, especially when going from the science face to the brute face, because I have gotten my finger or nail stuck on the chin and gotten the actual mechanism stuck. And then you just have to kind of reach in there and push the one face down while pulling the other one out. It's not easy. So normally I leave the figure just with the grunt face. That is my preferred face, but as you can see, that face is a little bit off balance or kind of bent to the side. It's not perfect, but it's the face that I prefer. Posability of the figure is pretty good, but the first thing I want to tell you is this figure is well balanced. It looks like he would be top heavy, but he really isn't, so that's a good thing. Head is on a swivel, and it does turn 360. Now, be careful, because the swivel on my figure is just a swivel that slides out very easily when you transform the figure. The transformation is you push the head down, and then, as you can see, there was supposed to be a button in there that you push to pop the head up during transformation. But because the swivel actually slid out and disconnected from the mechanism, the spring that holds it in is now all wonky, so it doesn't want to stay in. And that was just me transforming it normally. Okay, so enough about the head. The arms, there is a swivel here at the shoulder, and then a very, very tight hinge on the arm, and a swivel here above the elbow, and then a smooth hinge at the elbow. The fists do not move. The waists are a dual hinge / swivel. Then there is a swivel right above the knee. There is articulation in the knee for at least 90 degrees. And then there is a complex ball joint / hinge joints for the feet. Now, the reason that is because of the transformation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, I want to talk about one of my major issues with this figure here in robot mode, and that has to do with the engineering of the torso, or shoulder section. Because these joints, because the swivel here and the hinge here are so tight, as soon as you move it, you untransform it. Yeah, distransform it, or you dislodge the pieces that are holding the shoulder section in place. Now, this is necessary for the transformation, but the engineering is such that there is no pegging in. There is a very tiny little peg here, but unfortunately, especially on the right side, there is no real way for it to hold and peg into place. So it just kind of sits there loosely. Also, the plastic in this mechanism is so thin and so fragile that I am terrified that this thing is going to break. These pins are very small, and the plastic attached to the pins are even smaller. So I am really worried about the longevity of this figure. On my shelf, he is going to stay in robot mode. I'm not going to transform him all that much. Now, that is on the left shoulder of the figure. On the right shoulder, things are a little better, but as soon as you move it, and I'm just gently trying to move this swivel, which you can see the attachment right there at the tip of my finger, as soon as you move it, it pops out of place, both shoulders. That is a real issue for me, and that just infuriates me, because there are ways you could design this figure so that doesn't happen. And obviously Hasbro and Takara did not do that. Transformation for this guy is incredibly complex and kind of a pain in the butt, in all honesty. We're going to start off with the jet mode. And to start off with the jet mode, first we're going to take the cannon and unpeg it and fold it all the way down so it's pointing down towards the ground. Now, one thing with the cannon is the little notches you see here peg into the little pegs inside, and they're very tight, which I do appreciate. The next bit, however, is the nose cone. The nose cone is made of entirely soft, malleable plastic. The type of plastic that's on, say, Transformers Prime Predaking for the spikes. This is a major issue because this prevents you from easily transforming the nose cone. And I will show you. First, you want to push the head down, and then you flip the nose cone up and around, and because this whole thing is soft plastic, you have to pinch it and push it with your nail underneath this little peg that is in the cockpit. So this becomes a big frustration, and you just have to pray to the transforming gods that you get it in there and it slides into place. That is a major issue for me, because when if I transform back into robot mode, you will see that the plastic, the super soft plastic here, is already marring. And if you look at the nose cone, you can see that the soft plastic is already starting to flex and bulge in weird ways. Just a major disappointment for me, honestly. Next, what we're going to do is take the whole nose cone section and flip it all the way down to the figure's robot mode's crotch and lift up the back here. And you'll see when you push it down, it unpegs the nose cone. Just slide that nose cone clamp into place in the back and then leave it like that. So far, we're actually somewhat similar to Transformers Animated Blitzwing. Next, we'll take the cannon here, fold that up and into the cavity, and then peg it into place so that the cannon is facing straight up, like that. Next, for the arms, you actually want to disconnect them and fold them straight up like this. Now, since the nose cone is pointing this way, what we're going to do is fold the arms in, turn the fists around, and then reach inside the inner forearms and flip out these little panels to cover the fists. Another issue that I've had is these little panels, the pegs in these panels, aren't pegged in well enough. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera, but that is already displaying wear and tear even before I got the figure. So the plastic is not quite right there. It actually looks marred, and that bit of white there is from removing the part from the runner. There's nothing really I can do about that, but these bits do have a tendency, these panels have a tendency to pop off very, very easily. So now that these bits are folded over and they are facing, the inside of the arms are facing up, we will fold them down, and they act like they should peg into place, but they don't, because the pegs here are shaped a specific way, and the peg holes that they're supposed to peg into, well, they just don't peg into them. There's no way that that's going to work. So they sit freely. They just sit freely, splayed out like that, and they don't peg into anything. That's so stupid. Okay, next, for the legs, what we're going to do is fold the legs up and then turn the legs such that the treads are facing in towards the body of the figure. Take the feet, collapse the feet, and then take these wings that are on the feet and point them so that they're pointing straight up, and then turn them to the side so that they are on the outside of the vehicle mode. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. Like this. Oops. And then we can reach here and pull out the wings, and the wings will peg. There's a little peg right there, so that will keep them from going. That's where you want to stop. And then take the wings. On the inside of the wings are these little foils that you want to pull out. Why they are there, I actually have no idea. I guess it's just to add some fullness to the wings. Doesn't really need it. So next we will push these in, and they will kind of peg into place. And here we have the plane mode. It looks fine. But as soon as you start picking it up and playing with it, it's just going to start falling apart because nothing pegs into place quite right. There is a landing gear back here, which we can get out if you've got the nails for it. So we can put him on the turntable. Before I turn on the turntable, there is one thing you might be able to do if you feel like it. Part of the tank transformation is grabbing the hips and actually sliding them out from the body. And you can do that here, but it doesn't look too good. It really doesn't, so you're better off just keeping it collapsed up against the body. And the other thing I forgot to do is reach around back here and peg these pegs into place at the back of the figure. Unfortunately, when you do one, because of the way the clearance is set up, once you do one, which is really hard to get in because of the thinness of the plastic, you grab the other and it just instantly comes apart because the clearance of the treads just doesn't really let you peg things into place. Now, as long as you don't touch the figure or start fiddling around with it, the jet mode looks really good, actually. I like the jet mode. I think it looks interesting. It's a definitely unique plane mode. It's not perfect by a long shot, especially considering the fact that the upper part doesn't peg in and the legs really don't peg into the rest of the body either. And that is a real problem for me. I hate super floppy figures. It just drives me crazy. I think that this could have been engineered, not engineered better. I think the plastics are the problem, in all honesty. I really think the plastics are the main issue here. In talking about the plastics on the legs and the wings and the feet are fine. The issue I have is with this purple piece right here, this big piece that actually swivels. This is much softer plastic than the rest of the figure, and that has caused some issues. Also, Why the heck are these designed like this? I don't get it. Why do you have these weird, oddly shaped pegs that are supposed to peg in right there? And if you're thinking, oh, well, you're doing it wrong, I'm actually not. Now, you see, here are the directions. And I have to give Hasbro credit. These are nice directions. They're nice and big. So one way I was thinking of fiddling with it is by turning the fists such that the inside of the hands are pointing towards the front of the figure and that it can peg in. And this works. It doesn't look very good, but it works. Yeah, that doesn't look very good at all. So, according to the directions, as you can see, the bits are supposed to be pointing down, and they are supposed to peg into place. So those were the tank side. Let me see here. Yeah, so here in the front of the directions, they're supposed to peg into place, but they don't. They can't, because the pegs are different shapes from the holes. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work. Transformation back to robot mode is actually pretty easy. Fold up the landing gear, bring out the legs, and then fold them down. We'll deal with the legs in a bit. Take the arms and kind of unpeg them. Get the cannon. Oh, you know, I completely forgot to show you the cannon mode. Sorry, in my rage. The attack mode for the jet, which I will just loosely put back together, is this. You fold the cannon out and you have it hanging off the bottom of the plane. Problem is, it doesn't point straight. It points kind of down at an angle. But I guess that works for ground troops. Oh, and the missile, you just push it in and then push the cannon in and it launches the missile. Standard missile. So yeah, that is the attack mode. Alright, let's get him back into robot mode. Now, I will admit the tank mode is better. It's not perfect, but it is better. So just flip some pieces back. I'm only going to half transform him for you guys, so we're going to get him just back into loose robot mode. Alright, so from here, we're going to go for the tank mode. First thing we're going to do is take the cannon and fold it up and then snap it down into place against the back and just kind of wiggle it so that it is pointing straight down the back while flush against the back. Then we're going to take the arms and fold them up all the way, and then they are going to fold in and around, and then this is where the correct peg pegs into place up against the barrel. So that fold that down, fold that in, fold that around, and then fold these little wing bits down. And these little wing bits pop off at the drop very easily as well, so just be forewarned there. So there we have the turret of the tank ready to go. For the legs, now this is pretty interesting. For the legs, what we're going to do is first pull them both away from the body like that, and then turn them such that they are facing up towards the cannon, and then turn them so that the treads are facing down, and then grab the tread and pull it away from the body and fold it out. And you might want to just take the ball joint and fold that forward. When you do that, you can come inside the leg and grab the front part of the tread and flip that out. And then once you do that, push the tread, peg that tread piece up into the body and push the tread, slide the tread back into the main body, but not all the way, which is weird. Because what you need is room to fold the wing all the way into the body, like that. Or all the way into the leg. So we'll do the same thing again on this side. Take the tread, pull it away from the body along this slide, open it up, and flip out the front of the tread, fold that all the way out, and then fold that up and peg into the leg, and then take the wing and fold the wing up into the leg. Then we can fold that whole section and peg that into the inside of what was the chest. And this little peg here is supposed to connect to this little slide part right there. And it doesn't always. Now, along with that part, along with this pegging here, there is a small peg on the chest of the robot mode that pegs into the back of the tread. And normally on one side this works fine for me, and on the other side it doesn't. We'll see if it works okay today. Okay, there. It actually, I pulled the tread out far enough that it works. Now what I like to do is just move it so that the feet are pointing straight back with the little airfoils tucked up in the back of the tank mode like that. And then we can push the cannon or the missile into the cannon thusly. Now I think the tank mode is much better than the jet mode. It looks much more like a tank. My only complaint is the treads don't really line up all that well, and you really have to be finicky and fiddly in order to get it to sit right. As you can see, it's not sitting right here on my turntable, and I'm playing with it to see if I can get it to sit better. Overall, though, the tank mode, I think, is a much, much better mode. That being said, the transformation still isn't that much fun, and it still doesn't look all that great, especially from the back. The back looks terrible. I think the Transformers animated Blitzwing pulled off both a tank and a plane mode much better than the Generations one. That's not to say this figure is a train wreck or terrible. I'm just digging the animated version more. Returning the tank to robot mode is a little bit of a chore, but once you know what you're doing, it can go pretty quickly. Flip the treads around and push them back into the body. Pull the wings out a bit from the legs. Pull the tread off from the front, and then fold the front tread part up into the other tread, and then slide the treads back into the back of the leg, or the front of the leg, I can't remember which. So do the same on the other side. Fold the wings up as far into the leg as far as they will go, and then turn the legs around so that the treads are facing forward. Open up the feet, and just move the little tail wing out of the way. Stand the figure up. Oh, I did forget to mention that the turret can move 360. Unpeg the rear, or unpeg the top of the arms, then fold them back down into place, and have it such that you want to make sure that the wings are actually, the tip of the wing is pointing down. Then fold the arm out, flip the inner forearm back up into place, take the cannon and flip that around, unpeg the nose cone, and remember, as I said, that there is supposed to be a gimmick here that you push in the chest and it pops up. Well, it just automatically pops up now because it broke. And here we have the robot mode. Overall, Blitzwing is a pretty big disappointment. Unfortunately, he did not live up to the hype or the thrill of seeing him at Toy Fair several months ago. One thing you can do is you can store the weapons on the holes on the back of his shoulders, which is nice. But as I said, the figure just doesn't hold up to my expectation. There are just too many problems, and I understand some of the decisions Hasbro and Takara made when creating this guy. I understand why they did what they did with design, but it just doesn't work. There are too many issues. He looks great in robot mode. I'm not going to deny that at all. The problem is when you start to play with the figure, or when you start to try and pose the figure. Because, like I said, I just tried to move the swivel in the shoulder, and it lifted the entire side of the figure. That's a big issue, and it's more of a frustration than anything. And I don't have time for frustration anymore. I don't want to put up with that kind of stuff anymore with toys. And I love Transformers. I do. Like I said, I love this robot mode. But good God, is that transformation a pain in the butt. The vehicle modes, neither of them work all that well. In animated, they worked because they were stylized. They were interesting. They were unique. They were their own style, as I said. But here, this is just a mess. Both of the vehicle modes are just a mess. I cannot recommend this figure. If you have to get this figure, just get him for the robot mode. The tank mode and the plane mode, as I said, are just big disappointments. But the robot mode is kick-ass.